Hey everybody, it's Lisa, and I am fortunate to be with Zack Arnold today, and we're going to talk some mental health and maybe some TV too. So here we go. So
I'm looking forward
how
to
you-
it.
yeah, thanks. How you been doing? How are things going?
I've been doing very, very well. Recently, a couple of months ago, finished up editing and now producing season 5 of Cobra Kai. Don't know when this episode is going to come out, but September 9th, for anybody that's listening, is a new season of Cobra Kai. And other than that, I've been very busy the last few months working on my website and my podcast and my coaching program, helping creative people design more fulfilling lives.
Awesome. So, mental health wise, can we get into that a little bit? And kind of,
I'd be more than happy to, sure.
all right. So, what all do you deal with mental health wise?
So one thing to clarify as far as mental health, I do not have any formal degrees or certifications as a
Right,
psychotherapist or a doctor, psychiatrist, or anything like that.
right.
But I have a fairly long history of dealing with my own bouts of depression, anxiety, burnout has definitely happened to me more than once from being very type A, hard charging, very much an overachiever, and always have been. So I have my own experience for years and years and years battling mental health and all these other areas. And now in my Optimize Yourself program, I help other creative professionals that are dealing with similar issues with burnout or depression or whatnot. And it seems that unfortunately things are only getting worse instead of better as the world gets more challenging to navigate.
Mhm. I deal with the anxiety, which you know about a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's probably more so for other people with, editing or whatever they're doing, just going all the time. And
Yes, our jobs are very intense and challenging, as are most everybody else that works in the entertainment industry, where the deadlines are very tight and the expectations are very high. And the human body and the human brain are just not designed to do the amount of work and the amount of time that we do it, which is one of the many things that I'm trying to change and improve and help people get better at time management. But yeah, unfortunately, mental health is a very common challenge in our industry.
right now, is it different doing like streaming editing versus what you used to do for like TV and burn notice and stuff? Is it
Sure. In some ways, it's different. It's mostly the same. We're still making television, and the process on a day to day basis is pretty similar. The big difference would be the amount of time that we have to do things. So, on Burn Notice, for example, you're working on a whole bunch of episodes at once, and they have air dates that are not that far off from when you're working on them.
right?
Whereas with a show like Cobra Kai and many streaming shows, whether it's Netflix or HBO or whatever it might be, you'll finish an entire season, you'll walk away from it, and it won't air for like a year. So when I worked on season 3 of Cobra Kai, between finishing it and people actually watching it was like a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
So the difference is, and this is one of the fun things about working on Burn Notice, and it may even be how you and I met. It's been so long I don't remember
Yeah,
anymore.
yep, we
But
did.
I could be working on an episode, and an episode aired that I was just working on and talking about it on Twitter. Whereas by the time a season of Cobra Kai comes out, I've been doing something else for months and months and months, and I've almost forgotten about it. So it's more
Mhm.
interactive and more fun when you're working on something that's broadcasting on networks while you're working on them. But it's a little bit nicer for lifestyle to be on a streaming show where you're allotted more time to finish it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that still keeps you busy, but at least it gives you more time for other things in the meantime too. So
Yes, it's very important to me
but
that work is not my identity in my life, because I'm
yes,
also a
exactly.
husband and I'm a father and a ninja and so many other things going on that I don't want to be living in my office.
Your American Ninja Warrior, is there going to be an episode of that airs with you on it, or did that?
There will be. There isn't yet, but I
Okay.
will make that happen. But the short version, for anybody that doesn't know, is for about 5 years I've been training to be on American Ninja Warrior, and I've had the fortune to get called by the casting team
Mhm.
and to be on the course and be in front of the cameras. But I have not produced a run that is inspiring enough, or I have not gone far enough such that I've
Um,
aired on the show. So, what most people don't realize about the show is that
mhm.
on any given episode, you see about 35 competitors. For that day that they shot, over 80 people ran the course. So less than half the people that compete actually get on the television show. So
Ah,
I've competed twice, but neither of those runs have made it onto the show, and that's frankly on me for not producing a run that was inspiring enough. So I'm training even harder than I was the last 2 seasons, and next year the goal is you're going to be able to watch my run.
okay, here's hoping.
Yes,
Here's hoping, because I
absolutely.
know you've been working on that for quite a while now. So,
Oh yes, for years. This has been a 5-year project that I've been working on.
oh wow. Here's hoping that'll be the one.
Yes,
Yeah,
so I'm going to make it happen.
that'd be awesome. You'll have to keep me posted on that.
Oh,
So,
for sure. You'll hear all about it. Don't worry.
yeah. Yep, and we met because of Bird Notice. That's how we met.
Yeah,
So
we met on,
it's
was it
been
via
for
Twitter originally? I think.
either that or Facebook. I don't remember. Probably
Right.
Twitter. I don't remember. It's been long enough. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But so yeah. Um, any other mental health stuff you want to talk about a little bit? Like
Well, I mean, let's
tips or
talk a little bit
tricks?
about anxiety, because anxiety is something that you certainly experience on a
Yes.
regular basis, and I know that I do, and I think a lot of people, actually more people than ever, are experiencing anxiety.
I
So I'm
think
curious,
because of
if you don't mind.
COVID,
Yes,
you
I
know.
think COVID had a lot to do with it, but
Yes.
I'm curious. I'm assuming your audience may know the answer to this question, but how does anxiety show up in your life?
For me, it's sometimes I'll get like real tense or I'll get like feel like I'm cooking from the inside out, kind of like just
Mm,
the physical thing, or just it kind of makes me freeze up a little bit sometimes.
sure. What's an example of a situation that makes you feel that way?
Well, my parents went on a trip and I was worried about them when they were gone, so
Mm,
that kind of showed up before they left, and then now that they're back, I'm doing better. So,
mm.
which is weird because they had a really good time on their trip, but I just worried about it. So,
Sure, of course. Yeah, I can understand that. What's another circumstance? How about on a regular daily basis? What's the kind of thing that might create anxiety for you?
just trying to get everything done in the day,
I
and if
think
I don't get
that's
my
a big
list
one for
done,
everybody.
yes, then if I don't get my list done, then it upsets me, but then I can just move it to the next day and I don't have to try to tackle all of it.
Right. I was gonna say that's a really good tip for reducing anxiety. Is not. I think that one of the traps people fall into when it comes to anxiety related to do lists and tasks and everything that has to get done, is that they think they can only release the anxiety if everything does get done. And I have a spoiler alert for both you and everybody else listening. You're never going to get everything done because there's always more to do. There's
No.
one moment in our lives when our to do list is going to be complete, and that is at the very end because there's nothing else that we can do because we're not on this planet anymore. So, one of the best tips that I can give people is to release the expectation that you're going to get it all done because you never are. So at the end of
Mm-mm.
the day, my to-do list is never finished, and there's always more things that I need to do tomorrow, but I'm okay with that as long as
Right.
I know that what I accomplished today is something that's going to move me forwards and I'm going to be just a little bit better by tomorrow.
And it's good to not have like 50 things on the list, try to do like five maybe. And
Mhm.
then if, yeah,
Yeah, or you can have as big of a list as you want, but you need to
right.
separate it between
Mhm.
what can I actually get done maybe this week or today? Because if I were to show you my to-do list of all the things that I have on a list, it's probably a couple thousand things. I
Right.
have at least
Exactly.
20 or 30 Trello boards and lists and Evernote and Apple reminders. They're everywhere, but I don't feel the pressure to get all of it done because I know that I never will. But if I have
Hmm.
5 things that are really important to move me forwards, those are the 5 things I'm going to focus on for the day and make sure that I have enough to do for the week. But I'm never worried about crossing everything off because it's impossible for me to finish my to do list because it's so gigantic.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Just have to prioritize everything and know that it's going to get done eventually. But it's like you said, you're never going to get all of them done. There's always going to be something.
Yep, I remember when I was much younger, I experienced the same thing with anxiety, where I always felt like once I get all these things done, then I'm gonna feel better, then I'm gonna feel ready, and it was just like chasing something on a hamster wheel. That
Mhm.
moment never ever came until I realized I'm never getting all of these things done. So at the end of the day, if I feel good about how I spent my time, I'm just gonna chill out and relax,
Right.
or swing on ropes and rings and all kinds of crazy
Get
stuff, which
ready
is
for
my
your
version of
Ninja
relaxing.
Warrior, right?
Yes, so that's my version of relaxing.
There you go. Now, I saw that you interviewed the editor for Top Gun.
I
Maverick.
did, yes. Eddie Hamilton, yep.
And that movie was awesome, by the way.
Yes, I think that was one of the best movies that has come out in years. And I think another thing that's really important about that movie is that we're kind of at a point because of COVID and also because of technology where people aren't going to theaters anymore. This was actually a problem even before COVID came along. But once
Mm-hmm.
COVID came along, it was almost kind of a nail in the coffin of, well, why do I need to go to the theater? I've got Netflix and I've got HBO Max and I've got a
Mm-hmm.
big TV and I've got big
Mm-hmm.
speakers. But what Top Gun Maverick showed us is that there's number one, still a reason to go to theaters. And number two, practical effects are more interesting than computerized effects.
Yes.
Because watching Maverick, all you're thinking is, oh my God, they really did this. All of this is
Uh-huh.
real. And
Uh-huh.
granted, there's still plenty of visual effects to enhance it and, do whatever they need to do. But they were actually out there flying jets. And that is really, really cool.
I didn't see it in IMAX simply because I don't think I could have handled all the intensity in IMAX,
Yeah.
but it was still really cool the way I saw
I
it. It
could
was like,
barely
oh my
handle it
God.
in a regular theater. I can't imagine it in IBAX. But yeah,
Yeah.
the amount of footage that editor had to go through just to be able
Oh
to
my
piece together
gosh.
those flying sequences. I mean, it took him months, and we talked all about it on the podcast. But if we're talking about mental health, he had shared with me on the podcast about that was the hardest job he'd ever worked on, and it brought him to a point where he just would show up at work and he's like, I don't know how to get this done anymore. And
Oh,
I
right.
think that one of the really big areas where I think a lot of people get stuck when they have a lot of things to do or they're dealing with anxiety is they're afraid to ask for help. And he talked all about
Mm-hmm.
in that interview how it was the first time he had to find the courage to ask for help because he couldn't do it all. But
Oh,
what an amazing movie.
yeah. That was like, but I'm waiting for it to come to streaming now so I can watch it at home,
Uh huh.
but I don't know when that'll be because I think it's still making money at the box office.
It's
So
yeah, it's it's
yeah.
it's climbing the charts. My guess is it's going to end up being one of the top 10 all time by the time it's done.
It's surpassed a bunch of different films. So
Uh huh.
I got to actually see it twice. I intended to only see it once, but they had a promo going on at Applebee's. So then my mom
Mm,
and I got to see it a second time at the theater. And I was like,
nice.
yes.
And how was it the
Yep,
second time? Just as good?
it was. I saw things the second time that I missed the first time.
Yeah,
So, and
that's
I'm
great.
so glad that Val was in it.
Mm-hmm.
It would not have been the same movie without Val Kilmer.
Yeah,
Like, even
agree. Yeah, I
though
thought it
he's
was.
in the health situation he's in, it still would not have been the same without him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. Yeah, I thought that was really great that they brought him back.
Was I think it was hard on him to do that, but I'm glad that they put him in because
Yeah, and you know that it wasn't actually his voice; they actually recreated that voice.
right. Yep.
Yeah.
Because they use that technology to recreate
Mm-hmm.
his. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. That is so cool that they were able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That was like probably one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie was him and Tom together.
Right.
Just
Yeah,
seeing
that was
them.
great.
Yeah. It was a long time to wait for that movie, but I'm glad it
Well,
finally
they
dropped.
were smart to be very very patient. Actually, this is another good thing to think about when it comes to mental health and anxiety. Have you ever heard of the marshmallow test?
Uh-uh.
So the marshmallow test is a test that came out, I believe it was in the 70s from Stanford University,
Uh-huh.
where researchers were testing what the connection was between a student's ability or a young kid's ability to be patient and wait for
Mhm.
gratification or get instant gratification and what that equaled later in life to be successful. So they said, we're going to either give you one marshmallow now, or you can wait 15 minutes and we'll give you two. And the
Oh.
ones that couldn't be patient, that wanted it right now, they got their marshmallow. But the ones that waited, they followed them throughout life. And there's a correlation between those willing to delay gratification and those that were more successful. And
Huh.
Top Gun is actually a really interesting study in this because almost, if not all of the movies that were made before the pandemic ended up releasing during the height of the pandemic and losing most, if not all, of their money. And
Uh-huh.
Tom Cruise and Paramount said, nope, we are letting this movie sit here until we know we can make our money back. And had it released 2 or 3 years ago, they would have lost a ton
They
of
would have,
money.
yep, they would have
But the
been
fact,
out.
just think about being Tom Cruise 3 years ago when the pandemic hit, knowing how good this movie was and saying, we are not showing it to anybody. It's done. All we have to do is hit the play button, but I'm going to wait 3 years to show it to people. Like that's courage.
Hmm. Took a lot of guts to do that.
It certainly did. Probably almost as much guts for him to, fly around in those planes. But I would say that choosing to delay that movie was a very scary decision with the amount of money on the line, but boy, did it pay off.
I think it said it's made what, over $900 billion. I
Well,
don't
not probably maybe a couple billion. I think 900
know.
billion is a bit much, but it's
Yeah,
definitely
but
in the billions now.
it's made a
Yeah, it's doing very, very well. And it would not have done that had it released 3 years ago when it was ready.
mm-mm. And can you imagine if they tried to put it on streaming? They would have lost a whole bunch of.
Oh, yeah. No, it
It
wouldn't
wouldn't
have
have
worked
even
on
been the
streaming.
same on streaming
Yeah.
as it was on the big screen like that.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
smart move, even though I had to wait longer to see it, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, because they've been talking about it since 2016, I think, was when they started
Oh, yeah.
talking about it.
They've
Yeah.
talked about it for a long time. When I met with
Mhm.
Eddie and we recorded the podcast, it was like 6 months before the pandemic, and he was pretty much done. So
Right.
my interview that I wasn't able to release until a couple of months ago is actually over 3 years old. So I was sitting there with what I thought
Holding
was one
on
of
to
the best
that.
interviews that I'd ever done, and I'm just like, when do I get to release this? It was
I,
even before there were Zoom calls, so it was audio only. I've been doing
right.
video podcasts forever, and that was when I don't have any video because it was before we even used Zoom to record podcasts.
Hmm. That had to be hard to sit on that one. Yeah.
It
I need to
certainly
go
was,
back
but
and
it was
listen
worth
to
the
all
wait.
that one. I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I will definitely do that because,
Yeah, it's fascinating.
yeah, especially with all the mental health stuff thrown in there and then
Yeah.
just the making of the movie and
Mm-hmm.
the 3 months of intense training that he put them all through to get
Yeah.
those flights. Oh my gosh. Like, I just can't imagine the intensity of that, but
Well, the hard work paid off for everybody.
it did. My mom was funny because he said, thanks for coming and thanks for waiting. And you helped us make this. Mom goes, well, then where's our money? So, well, we contributed to the money they made off of it.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Then I just saw Jurassic World not too terrible long ago. That was good too.
Oh, the brand new one?
Yeah. Uh-huh. That
Yeah.
was really good. I
Yeah,
don't know
that
if
was
you
a
saw
fun
that
one.
one yet or if you've
I
seen it
did. It wasn't my favorite of the series, but it definitely
yet.
had a lot of fun moments and certainly looks good.
Good. But definitely Top Gun is probably my number one summer movie this year.
Oh yeah, by far. I think it'll
Yeah.
be everybody's favorite summer movie.
So anything else? Any other tips you want to give or anything coming up?
I mean,
Or
I can, think of a whole bunch of tips in a whole bunch of areas, but it just kind of depends on what's the most important to learn for you or for your listeners. But I
just
mean,
anything on mental health, whatever you want to touch on. It's fine.
yeah, I think that what I usually will close these conversations with, if somebody wants essentially, if somebody were to ask me, what's your best advice
Hmm.
to, like protect your mental health or, whatever it might be,
Right.
or even when I talk to high schoolers and college students and they're like, what's your best advice for being successful? I always give very contrary advice to what they would expect. And my advice is that if you want to protect your mental health, you need to be good at setting boundaries. Because one of the things that creates the anxiety and creates the overwhelm is saying yes to everybody and
I'm
not
guilty of
allowing.
that. I'm doing better at it now, but I say yes, and I'm like, no, I could say no. There's
Yep,
nothing wrong with saying no.
the word yes can be very dangerous for those that manage anxiety and manage depression because you constantly say yes to the needs of others and you forget about your own needs,
Hmm.
and then you find yourself burning out because you never have enough time for yourself. So anybody that's interested in better managing mental health, anxiety, overwhelm, it's all about setting boundaries.
Hmm. That's perfect. I need to try better at that. I'm getting better than I was, but
It's a practice like anything else. You're not going to be able to change overnight, but if you can just set little boundaries here and there and develop that safe space to realize that it's okay to say no and people aren't going to be angry with me and I'm not going to burn bridges and create a bunch of enemies, people respect no.
and being able to ask for help when you need it is probably a good one too.
That's a very good one. Yes, being able to ask for help and being willing to say no if something is not going to allow you to take care of yourself. They're both challenging, but they're both very, very important.
Well, thanks so much for taking time with me.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Always happy to be here and chat with you.
Yeah, you take care, okay?
Yeah, you
All
too.
right. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Bye, everybody.